Welcome to special episode 3 of the Liberty Mastermind podcast, where tonight we're going to hear Pat's favorite quote ever from law enforcement training. Let her rip, Pat.
Awesome, Ox. Happy to be here. If you heard our last episode, if you haven't, go check it out. If you have, you'll know we talked about some things like bureaucracy. We talked about Pornell's iron law of bureaucracy and the 2 types of people there. I referenced 3 types of people, so let's start with that real quick, a little follow-up. So, Pornell's iron law of bureaucracy says there's 2 types of people. One group is devoted to the mission in a bureaucracy or an organization. The second group is devoted to the mission, to the organization itself. So one group is busy doing the mission, one group is busy being devoted to the organization, like administrative and command and support and all those things. And while the people are busy doing the mission, the people that aren't doing the mission get promoted, and they write the manuals, and they oversee the operators. I like to think there's 3 groups of people, because there are people that are devoted to the mission, that are like, I want to go help people, and put out fires, and shoot bad guys, and save damsels in distress. That's one group of people. The next group says, I want to support this organization, like the Red Cross, or the government, or the state, or the police department. The third group, I know for a fact there are people out there that all they care about is themselves. But I don't think they fit in either of the other 2 groups. That's also another big problem with bureaucracy. But let's get to my favorite quote here. So there's many different stages of training for law enforcement. Let me give you a super quick skeleton outline. You get hired, or you pay for your own, and you go through the police academy. So either a department hires you, you do the police academy, or you do it yourself and you do the police academy. Every state in the union is different. And every county and every city is different. But usually step 1, police academy. Step 2, once you're fully at your agency, you do what's called agency-specific training. So they tell you specifically how they want the job done. Well, if that's the case, why do we have the police academy? Okay, whatever, we'll let that slide. Then the next step is, specifically for law enforcement, if you're going out to the road to do patrol, like the little drive a little police car, whoop whoop, you have what's called a field training officer. Many people refer to that as an FTO, and some people have different acronyms, but FTO is really common, which means you get a police car, and your direct supervisor is another policeman that sits in the car with, or policewoman, whatever, sits in the car with you, and they kind of walk you through everything, and it's basically on-the-job training, or OJT. So even though you went to the police academy, even though you did the agency training, most of that, by the way, is just CYA training, cover your ass. It's not for you, it's for the agency to be protected. So they sign off on your qualifications, they say that you've been trained, so that when they release you, you're accountable to yourself, and it's not really the agency's fault for not training you good enough. So we're moving forward here, I'm trying to push through. So you have field training, so you work with another police person, and they sign off, yeah, he's pretty good. Okay, so now you're on your own, you're doing your own thing. There's also annual training where your specific state that you live in will set a requirement for how much and which type of training you must attend each year to keep your police certification current. So for the state that you live in, like Florida, Georgia, Alabama, for the state to recognize that you are still a qualified police person. I was at one of those. So I had been on the street doing the police job for a couple of years, and they said, come off the street. No, I'm sorry. I'm way ahead of myself. I'm sorry. This was agency specific. So I had done the police academy, and then I got hired, and they said, before we put you on the road with a trainer, we're going to, give you a couple classroom lessons to show you how we do things. Part of that was to learn the policy. That's a big part of it. So everything I said up to now, let's put that, let's keep it in your head if you want, but we're starting a new chapter here. You walk into a little portable classroom that's like a trailer, but not with wheels. So you walk in, there's a bunch of desks, there's a trainer, you're excited, you got your little police pants on, you got your police shirt on, you got a belt. You may or may not have a real gun, you may or may not have a radio, but your face is shaven, your hair's tied up, you got your little desk, and you're like, man, I can't wait to go out on the road and do real police stuff. You're like, I'm so happy that this department is teaching me how they do things. And the instructor walks in. And you have a spreadsheet in your little folder in front of you that says, 8 a.m., be here. 10 a.m., be here. 11 to 12 is lunch. From 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock, you have, this was called Agency Pursuit Policy Training. Ox, what do you think the purpose of this training was?
More CYA.
Well, let's pretend we're not so cynical for 5 seconds, which we both know. Okay, if it's called Agency Pursuit Policy Training, what would you expect us to talk about?
Motor vehicle pursuits.
Right, and specifically, Agency Pursuit Policy Training.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, policy.
Oh, get the heck out of here. Okay, so we got a guy that worked for an agency outside of our state, and I work in Florida. So he came from Alabama, and he worked as a state trooper in Alabama for decades doing Alabama pursuits in an Alabama police car. He came to my agency and somehow is super high ranking, but never did a pursuit at my agency. And so for an hour, okay, well, we had him for an hour to talk about policy. For 55 minutes, he told us war stories about, in Alabama, we'll chase anybody for anything, and we'll run up and down the highway. And this one time, we had this one guy that he had ran a stop sign, and I chased him for 100 miles, and my boss was like, have at it, Hoss. And then he stopped, and he ran out of gas, and I ran out of gas, and I chased him into the woods, and I gave him, oh man, that was back in the day, I gave him one heck of a beating. So at minute 56, I think someone had asked the question, okay, so what can we do at our agency? And he literally, verbatim, and I don't use that word lightly, verbatim, he said, well, I mean, I have the policy right here, and he holds up the policy for pursuit, like when you can and cannot pursue someone. He said, well, I have the policy right here, but I mean, I just don't have the time. We can't get into that. And then the class ended, and I walked out with a check in the box that I was trained on the agency's policy for pursuit. That is my favorite fucking quote, period, ever from law enforcement training. I got the policy right here, but I mean, we don't have time to read it. We don't have time to read it. So, ladies and gentlemen in the audience, that is some really good insider information for where your fucking tax dollars go and how they're spent. And when you say, oh, the police are trained to do yada, 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 that is what we do. And that is what's called, quote, unquote, training. So thanks for listening to special episode 3. Ox, you want to carry us out?
Oh, God, I don't even know what to say now. My head hurts from listening to that. You're pulling the curtain back. I'm like, Thanks for listening to special episode 3. If you have a headache, you might want to get some Tylenol, acetaminophen, maybe your favorite NSAID, ibuprofen, Aleve, Motrin, whatever. Thanks for tuning in.